Welcome back to another episode of Reflect Live, the podcast where stories come to life and hearts are opened. I'm your host, Michelle. Here in Reflect Live, we offer a platform for people from all walks of life to share their experiences, their triumphs, and their challenges. It's a space where people thrive and connections are made through the power of storytelling. And today we have something truly special in store for you. So grab your favorite beverage, find a cozy spot, and let's dive into another episode of Reflect Live. Get ready to be inspired, moved, and maybe even crack a smile or two. This is Reflect Live with Michelle.
I'm Michelle with Reflect Live podcast, and I have Sharon's son, George, with me on the show today. How are you doing, George?
Good. Thank you and your viewers for the time. It means the world to me and my family. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you're on here sharing your story. George is going to tell his story about his mom that went through Parkinson's and just spread the word and just get the message out, about the disease itself. George, to start off, could you tell us a little bit about Sharon and the kind of person that she was before the disease?
Yeah. Sure. Unfortunately, my mother passed on 1/1/2020. She had Parkinson's for approximately 15 years. We didn't really know what it was besides the word, Parkinson's for several years. Unfortunately, one night towards the last 4 years of her life, my father brought her to a study, like a trial for Parkinson's, because we tried everything that you can dream of even today. But I look back, there's nothing else except for cure, which we don't have still. And I got a call frantically at 4 a.m. that night. My mother had been moving her furniture out of her home in fear there were Nazis inside. And that's when I discovered that she also had late onset dementia. So I was kind of thrown into the world, even though you can't take a class on caregiving, but I was thrown right into it. And Parkinson's usually, for some time, she had stiffness in her left arm, but it didn't affect her ability to live alone and independently. It also brought about, she had more internal tremors, but if you know Mr. Michael J. Fox, the famous actor who had young onset, age 30, around 30s, he has external tremors, so you can really physically and see the movement. It's a movement disorder. It almost seems like, imagine you wanted your brain to say, let's walk to the wall there, or the door to open it, but your body doesn't allow it. It's the fastest growing neurological disease in the world, not just in the United States. About 1 million people are affected, diagnosed in the U.S., but 10 million throughout the world. And my mother had also dystonia, which is the curling of the toes. So those are some of the symptoms, but that night again came late onset dementia, which not everyone gets. That's why there's no cure. It's so complicated, but every person is different. But with dementia comes hallucinations and delusions, which is something that made me feel like we were in a horror movie, because at some points the person doesn't know or appreciate who is in the room, like reality, or if they passed 20 years ago. And sometimes it was cute, sometimes it was horrifying, and sometimes it was tough. One instance, she laughed a little because she said her mother and father were in the room, and I didn't laugh with her because I was kind of confused. But it's a tough thing, and that's why I'm here today and grateful for your time and your audience. I don't think this is, just a conversation. This is something that has to continue till we find.
Yeah. Before the Parkinson's, can you tell us a little bit about her?
Yeah, my mother's very kind, generous. Even today, it's funny. Last night was a great night. We had a book release party, and we had 30 of my closest friends and family. If anyone out there is on social media, I'm on every one somehow. And, you'll be able to see some of the pictures of my speech. I gave a speech, but it was some of the things I loved about her were I don't think I'd be the man I am today if it wasn't for her sacrifices. She was a little children middle school teacher in lower school and had a master's degree, and she sacrificed her whole career so she could help raise me and my brother. When she needed help, I knew it was time to step up. She was just very giving. She sacrificed again, like everything, but I'm from New York. She took me from New York to Florida, and if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have met my wife and my family, and she loved being with the children. She had 3 grandchildren. Her favorite time was blowing bubbles on Sundays in the backyard with them, and it's often tough even to talk about it because now I walk by the backyard, and she's no longer able to do that because of Parkinson's disease.
My goodness. Now, was she a single mom?
Yes, she was. My mother was divorced. My father was in New York. He's a doctor, but they were kind of close on the phone. But obviously, he's the one in a way that diagnosed her from New York, because when you go to find out about Parkinson's diagnosis, there's no actual test right now in the world. It's really, they try to look at other diseases and narrow it down. And if you don't have those, it's Parkinson's, which is not very effective or efficient. Again, I'm not a medical doctor. My background is I was an attorney, still am, in Washington and Florida. Then I became a police officer, and I'm a reserve now. And I did my PhD in criminal justice. So my background is actually, before caregiving, was advocating for family members who lost a loved one due to crime throughout the United States. So in a way, I've always been an advocate. I'd always fight for those who might have no voice or aren't able to figure out, how to be heard. And I kind of shifted, obviously, over to the world of Parkinson's advocacy because of my loss of my mother. And today I fight in her memory, but for all those still battling the disease and their family members who also battle it, because Parkinson's doesn't just affect, one person, it affects the community. And unfortunately, again, it's the fastest growing neurodegenerative disease. And now, I'm hearing more and more people coming up to me and saying more questions. And I don't know if it's because of our advocacy or just because the disease is getting worse.
Is it hereditary, or is this something like in our food? Like what's your research found?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've had the honor to now become like family, like with you, because again, this is to me not just a podcast. It's something more. My goal is we reach even one person in the world and we change the world for more positive. But I've had the honor to interview 600 people around the world. For 2 years ago, I discovered that there were 10 million people in the world. I didn't realize that. So I decided it wasn't just about me and my mother anymore. It was about everyone, and we're a family in this fight. So I interviewed 600 people from France, Spain, Italy, you name it, Australia, Iceland, Nova Scotia. And, Parkinson's disease doesn't discriminate. It can get to anyone. Your question is very important. It is not hereditary, they believe, or genetic, but they do think, and I agree, it's more about the environment. So my mother had a beautiful home, but over 20 years had mold, termites, and who knows what they sprayed. So she passed at 69, had no other medical issues ever. So, and now I don't know if it was directly just Parkinson's or could be all the horrible medicines, because when she passed, we threw out, I'd say, 5 huge black contractor-sized garbage bags of medicines. And when you're taking all that in, whether it's for Parkinson's, dementia, or something else, it's safe. It destroyed her.
And garbage bag. You said garbage bag.
Yeah, like those concentrate, not the regular. I'm talking about the heavy dude. It was very horrible. But
oh my gosh.
that on top of the Parkinson, the dementia destroyed her gut, her stomach. So doctors do feel, and I've interviewed some experts who's now in this world. I have a podcast, but it's only really for the Parkinson's world. And I interview people like medical experts, and one just recently said that you can even possibly get it from your cleaners, like the chemicals they use. And so as he was saying that, I was trying to think of how I could take the suit off. But I do think, we have pesticides in the fruits and vegetables and food that we buy. We have in the water we drink. We trust that people are not contaminating it, which is not always safe. There's a famous poison called paraquat. It's banned in China, but not in the U.S., and that's what they use. So a combination of all these things is really what I feel in my heart that can cause it. Some, we don't have a cure, but there are ways today to slow the progression. Too late for our family, but exercise 45 minutes a day is very critical to slow the progression, and also healthy diet and eating. So obviously, whether you have Parkinson's or not, we should all be following this, but in reality, it's not easy. To eat organic is extremely expensive. So our society needs to shift and to start talking, and by you and me and you and your audience speaking up, maybe we could bring some change.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was the early signs of, so when you were hanging out with her and she was doing bubbles, did she do anything that you're like, Mom, are you okay?
Yeah, the main thing was that stiffness in her left arm, because she was able to use the rest of her body. And again, she would drive, she would see her friends, she'd get her hair done like beautiful women thing. I'm a guy, so I don't know much about what the ladies do. But, things like just living a normal shopping, driving. But then like the 5th year, right before the last, when I took over her life and helped her, became her, not just advocate, but her power of attorney. We worked on her will, funeral, and all this stuff, which you're told you don't die of Parkinson's, you die with it. So I'm still in shock today because it's been 4 years. I'm still grieving. I mean, she was my best friend. We used to speak 7, 8 times a day. I always said I need a shirt that says I'm proud of being a mama's boy, because I might be 6'2", 200 pounds in law enforcement, but, she was my world. And some days it's tough to even talk about, but I know we have to if we're going to come closer to a cure for and awareness too.
Sure. And so when her arm got stiff, did she just like go to just a regular doctor and say, "Hey, my arm's stiff. What's going on with that?"
There are movement specialists, neurologists. Those are who I recommend to see. Obviously, I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't say what to do. But, she went to 15, several experts here, there, and no one could really do much but give medicine. And the medicine was only to help if you're shaking and tremors, but that doesn't stop the disease or cure it. So the main thing was the stiffness in the arm, but she was I don't know the word. I don't know if she was, if she could have been diagnosed a little late. She might not have been aware of Parkinson's, or she relied on doctors who said, there's no way you're going to die from it. So a lot of it is about awareness, and also things like misdiagnosis, which isn't what she had, but some people have that, and getting the wrong medicines. There's just so many factors involved that can also complicate the result. But she was really an incredible person. She didn't want to burden the family, so I wish she did. But I think she kept a lot of it from us, which is unfortunate, because not that I could have done much more, but maybe we could have tried if I had known earlier what it is, more about it, and things like that.
Yeah. Oh, and you mentioned that you were her caregiver. Can you describe the challenges? Maybe someone's out there that's in the same situation, maybe in going into that situation, some of the challenges that you faced being a caregiver?
Yeah, actually, that's what the book came out, and it helps because it's called The Son's Journey from Parkinson's Disease Caregiver to Advocate. And I actually kept a journal the last year because I felt alone, and that's what my mission is, that people never feel alone. So whether a caregiver or a person diagnosed, you're not alone, because I'm out there fighting for you. But I can, even if you don't mind, read one little sentence.
Yes, that was actually what we're going to talk about next. So yes. Go ahead.
And it's fun that I can do that, because 2 weeks ago there was no book. It was just there. But so July 17th, my mother again passed 1/1/2020, but July 17th, 2019. Mother was sick and missed every doctor's appointment this week. The medicines are not right, and we can't get her to see the doctors because she misses appointments and is too sick to go. But she agreed to go to the hospital to have her mental state checked and see a psychiatrist and a neurologist. We started getting her ready at 2 p.m. I had to pay a case manager to help, who gets $225 an hour, almost unbelievable, and came to the house. With her help, my mother would have a chance to get the medicines under control. The case manager also took my mother to the hospital, but then left. But my mother decided not to stay and went home with my brother. So basically what that brings you a little bit of a day of what was going on. But I had to handle my mother's, Parkinson, my mother's dementia. I had to have some aid, so I was helping her on the clock, but I didn't want her to fall. So if I wasn't there, I didn't want her to fall, and I had to pay people. We were spending $12,000 a month, so it was a financial part. Financially, it was tough. Mentally, it was hard. I couldn't help her. I felt, helpless, as no one was. We took her to all these doctors. We hired case managers. That. No one. It felt like like a nail and a hammer just hitting me every day. And you go through anguish, anxiety, depression, stress, and anyone in your family, a friend or anyone, seeing them go from healthy woman or man or whatever it is, person, loved one. She was walking 3 miles a week, and then the last 4 years she went to a cane for 2 years, then from the cane to the walker for a year, then the walker to a wheelchair, and then bedbound. And it was something that is unexplainable, but I was able to put it in words in one of the chapters in the book. So it helps a lot, because it really will bring you, if you are a caregiver or if not, but this is really for any disease, not just Parkinson, but it'll bring you into the good, the bad, and ugly. But I do have to say that obviously I lost my mother and my best friend, but what comes out of it today is the hope. And I want people to know there is a lot of light from the tunnel of darkness, because I met some incredible people like you and your audience, and today a lot of my family, people in the Parkinson's community who are struggling, and also those who also are advocates, and we're all family in this fight.
Absolutely. So you mentioned the book. So here's the book on Amazon. So just the viewers, A Son's Journey from Parkinson's Disease Caregiver to Advocate. Can you tell us a little bit more about the book? Because what you read was very insightful.
Thanks. It actually is important because obviously we don't always have the time to cover everything, but it really brings in it actually answers, you probably didn't even need me to, you could just recite the book, but the first chapter is the first signs, then talks about symptoms, treatments, my caregiving. My wife actually has a chapter, my children, because if it wasn't for them, I don't think I would even be here today because I'm still struggling. Also trying to find good aid so she wouldn't fall. Great caregiving. The final week is one of the tougher chapters. And then I actually had family and friends write little passages in the book in her memory. The aftermath and the mission forward. And the final chapter was my favorite, which is how grateful I am to so many, including you, for being able to shed a light on this important topic. Because if we don't have these conversations, and my goal is really to reach people who are not aware and people who do not have Parkinson's, because obviously they have it, they know about it. Obviously I fight for them, but we need to get everyone involved or we're never going to make cure.
I totally agree with that. And you mentioned your family. Can you just kind of share how it's been with your family and kind of what you're willing to share, I guess I should say, what you guys have went through, because it definitely could not be easy, right? And I just want to help somebody out there that is struggling, and you guys are still together. You're not divorced. You're still together, still hanging in there, whether it's hard, difficult, you're still together. Can you help anybody out there?
Even as an advocate, it's not like a month ago we had a little talk because she said I'm doing too much, and it's kind of the same thing with during the caregiving. The number one rule for caregivers is take care of your own health first, or you're no good to your loved one. I kind of destroyed that as a caregiver and as an advocate. Why? Going back as a caregiver, for some odd reason, my mother she was struggling. But when I was next to her, she felt like at ease, like she knew she was safe. We brought in people because I didn't want her to fall. Like it was like these horrible companies. They say they're caregivers. They don't even know what Parkinson's is. It's a whole chapter. And that was extremely difficult. So taking someone who's independent, bringing in like staff who rotate 3 different women a day. And my mother's like used to living alone. She's scared because not only the disease, but strangers are coming in to live with you. And
Sure.
so that was a nightmare. So I spent like 24/7 trying to just comfort her. And you're not supposed to do that, but I'm proud of what I did. And I was grateful that I had the opportunity to be there for her. Now we fast forward to advocacy again. I don't know if you mind telling, but we're here on a Sunday, and I mean that's how amazing you are as a person and a care. And here we are again. And I mean, last night we had an event for Parkinson's. This last month, actually April, was Parkinson's Awareness Month. To me, every day is Parkinson's Awareness Month till we end the disease, but the nation celebrates it. And it's funny that I had this sitting here, but just the other day I got the declaration from the governor, Ron DeSantis, naming.
Congratulations.
It took me a lot, like 8 months, but he declared Parkinson's Awareness Month in the state of Florida in memory of my mother.
Oh my goodness.
And so that's the tireless work. And I actually gave a speech where I am in Palm Beach County to the commission. I spoke with our city about the city of Boca Raton. I also have somehow reached the Senate, interviewed United States Representative Paul Tonko. And I also last month interviewed United States Senator Rick Scott. And the reason I'm reaching out, and I hope you and I don't know what state you're in, but
Missouri.
we need you. But everyone out there listening, we're actually coming through history. So just fast forward, rewind, and then go quick because I know we're running out of time. But there's never been legislation, which is shocking to me as a person, for Parkinson's ever in the United States history. Thankfully, last December, I'm proud to say the House of Representatives passed the first bill in U.S. history, bipartisan, which in society today, nothing is bipartisan. So that's why I love it. It doesn't matter if you're any political party. We're all in this to end the disease. So they passed it unanimously, and now it's moving to the Senate. We don't know if it'll go this year or next or who knows when, but if everybody out there, including yourself, can urge your senator to please support, it's called the National Plan to End Parkinson's Disease. It's spearheaded by the Michael J. Fox Foundation, and I was honored to be a part of it. And that's how I've been able to interview a lot of people, because Senator Scott and both senators in Florida have approved it and have signed on. So if all the senators throughout the U.S. sign on and it passes, the president will sign into law. And that'll be the first bill in U.S. history for people with Parkinson's and their caregivers. And it's going to change the world for early diagnosis, for awareness, for actual funding for a cure. I mean, I hate when a person with Parkinson's has no money because they're spending it on their medicines. It's just not right. A lot of Medicare, they don't even cover it. It needs to change, and we need to support these people. And I'm on that book, the one we just showed, The Journey. It's actually in memory of my mother, but it's for people in any, caregivers in any disease and those battling the Parkinson's. But now I found myself afterwards in a weird spot. I don't have Parkinson's, and I'm no longer a caregiver of someone alive with Parkinson's. So I feel like I'm kind of lost in the conversation, and I still grieve. And a lot of the organizations I love, but they kind of forget me and all the millions who lost a loved one. So the next we finished already. I'm going to wait a while to release it, but it's actually going to focus on the memory of all those we've lost due to Parkinson's, and they have a voice and they still matter. So there's a lot of groundbreaking things coming, and I actually also am working as we speak. I just took a break this summer. I'll be writing another book, and this one's on policing and Parkinson's, because as a police officer, there is absolutely nothing at all for nothing. I actually have the manual. I don't talk about it a lot because watch them start it tomorrow, and then my book's garbage. But it could be a groundbreaking one. And the Michael J. Fox Foundation did say they will support me and possibly help me get legislation through all the United States just the word Parkinson's. Right now it says dementia and Alzheimer's, but they can easily put the word Parkinson's in one sentence, and then officers can now be aware. Because if you pull someone over late at night, they're uncontrollably shaking because they didn't have their medicine, or it's going to end in a very bad scene for both. And I think it could be very easily avoided.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I was watching the news, and there is an implant that they can put in the head that helps with the shaking. Have you seen anything like that?
Yeah, it's called DBS surgery. It's a deep brain stimulation, and for everyone not qualified, my mother wouldn't have done it. I'm a person who, unfortunately, May 21st, as we speak, I'm having a third major spine surgery, so it's been a nightmare. But every time I have pain, I think about everyone battling Parkinson's and kind of forget my pain and get back to that and fight, because that's something that kind of cripples your life. Back pain is horrible, but I'm still fighting here. So DBS is something that is very evasive. I don't want to talk too much about it because I never had it, but I did do research. And the one thing I can tell you is it is an incredible technology. I think some of it, they do the brain surgery while you're even awake, which I can't comprehend. That's why I went into law enforcement and law. I can't do I can't even see blood tests. But I did interview a gentleman he's a hero of mine, named Dan O'Brien. He was a famous guitar player for Santana and so many famous musicians, but he had to stop his whole career because of Parkinson. Well, recently he actually had DBS, and there's a button he has. And while we were doing a show together, he clicked the button off, and he couldn't stop shaking. It was so sad. He clicked the button, gone. And he gave a speech. I saw him a few weeks ago. He went from taking like 30 medicines a week or even a day. He doesn't take anything. I mean, so he's still affected, obviously, but it's kind of controlled. So it's definitely something to look into, but it's extremely evasive. My mother would never have done it just knowing. I mean, imagine us, someone, taking a needle to your brain. I mean, to the spine is bad enough, but to the brain. But again, a lot of people are getting it. And I know from the ones I've spoken to, they said they wish they had known about it earlier or had done it decades ago.
Yeah. And that's what I wonder, like Michael J. Fox, why hasn't he done it yet?
They do it. Unfortunately, it doesn't work.
Oh, okay.
He's not doing well, and I had the honor to meet him 2 times now. And he was wearing, we have a band called, it's the Together for Sharon band. We used to, and now we stopped. It went viral, and famous people around the world were wearing it. It was really amazing. And I had to stop because we don't accept money. Like, even to your audience, we don't want anything. We just want you to know that we love you and we support you, and you're not alone in this fight. But we're not a foundation on purpose. I'm just one person who lost his mother and best friend and doesn't want her to be forgotten. But TogetherForSharon.com was developed in a way to remember my mother, and I thought we'd have like 7 people look at it and I'd be fine with it. But there's actually a little counter on the page, and I looked the other week and there have been over 40,000 people visit.
Oh my goodness.
So it's really incredible. And we've had celebrities. Kenny G was my mother's favorite, and he actually he played a song and said a message in memory of my mother. I had Jack Osborne, Ozzy Osbourne's son,
Yes.
give a message. I met with Janet Reno before she passed, Michael J. Fox. I actually met Katie Couric and Muhammad Ali's daughter the other day. We went to the Unity Walk. It's once a year for the Michael J. Fox Foundation in New York City in Central Park. So there's been a lot of people now, celebrities getting involved, and unfortunately, again, they have been affected, whether they lost their father or their mother or a loved one. And it's really, it's shocking, but at the same time, when you realize you're not alone, you have a community around you, there really is some hope out there.
That is wonderful. And I know that we're running out of time. What are some misconceptions about Parkinson's?
I think that's the number one question that I should have started in the beginning. Number one, it's not an elderly man disease. That's a huge one. Number two, we need more support for women with Parkinson's. And also the topic of male caregivers was shocking to me. I didn't even think of it. I was asked to speak at a summit, and I'm like, I might be male, but I don't know what you're talking about. It's an epidemic that no males, I guess, really stand up or speak out. And I'm like, I would do this again for my mother in 3 seconds, and I'm proud of it. So it doesn't, I think I'm shocked when a nurse pointed it out during the struggle with my mother, and afterwards when I was asked to speak at a male summit. And I think men have to step up, shouldn't be shy. People out there, other males are going through this and maybe won't step up with their family. I was shocked to find out a lot of families put their loved one in a home, and that's the end of it. They never see them again. I didn't want to do that. We swore to my mother we wouldn't. There were days I told my wife I got to put her on, I can't take it, because it wasn't her, but I couldn't take the disease, and I wasn't equipped. But I never did give up on her. And again, it was just very tough. But I don't think the only thing I regret is one thing. Back then, we didn't have all these podcast ability. I wish if I had rewound time, and we did, that I could have had a show with my mother before Parkinson. Because I actually filmed and videoed her the last year, which was terrible. I only did it in case medical science ever needed. I would never share it because I don't want her to be remembered for that. But I would have loved, because even writing the book, thankfully, her sister, my aunt, was still with us, so she gave me a lot of background. But shocking, because you don't plan on your loved one thing, that you don't ask so many questions about your background and all that, because you never realize that they won't be here. But I would have dreamed to have a whole station or at least 20, 30 shows with her, just laughing and talking and about her life and things. That's the one regret I can never get back. But other than that regret, I have no others, because I'm not mad at the doctors or the medicine. I hate the disease, so not much you can do about that.
Yeah, absolutely. What is something that I didn't ask you that's important to get out there?
I guess you asked mostly, but togetherforsharon.com, again, if you do go there's so much, we don't have time. You'll see, it's almost become a life of its own. It's like a station. If you press media, you'll see we've been a newspaper, TV, we've been on the radio. I'm going to put your podcast today together on there. I really think, again, we're a community. It's not just about me. It's about all of us together. And this also, you'll see the 600 interviews completely free. I had a gentleman write me and said, I was on your site for 10 hours. And I wrote back and said, don't do that. But he loved it, because every morning a new story comes up of somebody fighting the disease or a loved one who lost. It could be celebrity up there, and it's their journey. And you can reach out to them too. Also, the site has a donation page, but what's beautiful is there's about 6 organizations I work with a lot, just advocacy, and all of them made this beautiful site dedicated in my mother's memory, but all money goes to them. So Michael J. Fox is there, Parkinson's Foundation, Drive Toward a Cure. They're just some organization, but none of it comes to us on purpose. And then there's also so many other things. It tells you about how you can get involved, like walks. We've walked around the country. Those are great, because I love virtual, but the last month was April was Parkinson's Awareness Month. We went to the Parkinson's Unity Walk in Central Park, which was beautiful. We also did the Parkinson's Foundation Walk here in South Florida. Then we also did a American Parkinson's Disease Association symposium where they had speakers. So it's kind of too much in a month, but it was important. I was, out there, and now it's over. So there isn't much virtual live, but, it just was beautiful, because, I can do all of these all day, but when you're standing in front of people who are still struggling, and then I'm like in the middle of 2 pharmaceutical companies, and no offense to them, they're selling things. And then sometimes the people will walk by and they kind of run from me because they think we're selling something. Then they give another glance and see my mother, see me, and they come over and they hug us. Like, we cry together, and they love it because they know that, I'm the only one there. I did a lot of research about writing, if I was even going to bother putting a book out. And I only decided to because guess what? And please find out if I'm wrong, let me know out there. There isn't one other son in the whole world that has a book on Parkinson's. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know of any. Yeah.
So that was where we made our dent, and I'm hoping this book, lives me someday. And I do hope that we end this disease before I'm not here anymore, because I didn't want my kids to have to continue together for Sharon. Obviously, I'd love it to be there just in my mother's memory, but knowing that people are still struggling is just heartbreaking. And just last night, again, we had a little party, 30 people, family, friends, and some people had Parkinson's, and I gave my speech, and I saw one of the individuals was crying. I don't mean to do that, but the reason they were is they were just couldn't believe how much I put into it. I feel like my heart burns until the end, and that's very important. I do have a little statement to say before we.
Absolutely.
Now, I always say this after every show I do or come on, but this is for you and your viewers. We love you, we support you, we care a lot about you, and you're never alone. We'll advocate for you, and together our voices are so much stronger. And I'm just getting started. And I say that every time because, like I said earlier, when I see a new person, or I always say the only journey that breaks my heart is the one I'm not aware of. And when I discover a new journey, like there's a couple I'm interviewing in a few weeks. They have an incredible story I didn't even know about. They both have Parkinson's, and they're both young, like literally 30s or 40s. And they both had the DBS surgery together at the same time. And they were actually in like People magazine. But it's such a beautiful story. And when I heard that, I reached out, and it was not easy to find. They're very busy and they have life and kids. But I reached them. We're going to be meeting on a podcast. But that's what drives me, and that's what keeps me going. And it's just so many wonderful, beautiful people out there that don't deserve this. And until we end this disease, I'm not going to stop fighting. And I'm grateful for you, your audience, and I consider you all family. And thank you again.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. And it's togetherforsharon.com. Yeah.
And the big thing is we're not an organization. I always have to tell the hosts, I don't have to do with you, but it's always like, because unfortunately 2024, people always think like Shark Tank, but wait, there's more, like I'm going to throw something at them.
Right.
We don't want anything. And I actually returned a donation once. I was at one of these live events, and a gentleman was really nice. He gave me $5. I said, we don't accept this. So he ran away. So I went home and literally donated the $5 to the Parkinson's Foundation. I asked for a receipt. I emailed it to him. I never heard back. But, that's not why I do this. I just don't want anyone to have to go through this.
Absolutely. And then it's up to you, but I'd be more than happy to put A Son's Journey on my website. I can put your book on my website. And so visitors that come on there, they can click and go to Amazon and purchase your book.
The cool thing is it's actually not, when I had it out, it was just paperback and Kindle. But now all of a sudden we have a hardcover version, we have a ebook, and the coolest thing for me is that we hired someone it was not easy, but he has like a movie voice because I don't like my voice, but we have an audio book, which is really, I never dreamt.
Nice.
He had to redo it though. I love him. But he had to redo it because my wife has a tough name. It's Grether. So he did the whole thing and had to redo the whole thing because he didn't say her name right. He was a pleasure, and it's just a beautiful thing he did, and a tribute. And some people unfortunately who have Parkinson's can't read anymore. They can't speak. The disease does tough things, but now there's an opportunity for everyone to listen to. So really, it's not easy as an independent publisher too, putting out your own book. It's only because of all of you if we can get this around the world. And this book is very important for caregivers, for people not just with dementia, Parkinson's, but anywhere around the world. And I just hope it reaches those people, because I think it can help a lot of people who do feel alone, and now they'll know they're not.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Sharon Son George, for coming on the podcast, and really appreciate it. And I hope that we reach, whomever is listening. I hope that this helps them.
I appreciate all you do, and thank you to your audience. We send our love to.
Talk to you later.